What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Kyler Speaks, episode number 7. Today, I must say, I had crazy, crazy root canal the other day. I had a crazy experience at the dentist. I will explain it to you, but I am currently on prescription medication, and so my brain is not quite working like it usually does. Not saying that it usually works well, but it's working even less so. So stick with me. I'm going to put out a podcast. I have to put out a podcast every single week, at least one. So with that being said, let's get right into it. My experience at the dentist yesterday. So I needed a root canal. I had never had a root canal. I have no idea what a root canal consists of. Apparently, they take the nerves within your tooth out and then patch it up. But they had to do tooth reconstructive surgery. And so immediately I was like, oh, okay. I'm not the one to ever freak out about surgeries. I've had multiple, many surgeries, and I am calm as a cucumber. And today was no different. Yesterday was no different. When I went in, I was like, you know what? I guess we're here. I guess we're going to do this thing. So they were extremely experienced. They did a very good job. That's why, especially if you have insurance, if you have good insurance, just go in, just get your teeth fixed. There's nothing scary about the dentist. I happen to love the dentist. Those of you listening on the podcast, I go to the dentist all the time. All the time. There is a dentist attached to my building. So I go down there, they know me, I know them. Hey, what's up? We're good to go. I have never had a root canal. So they numb you up, and all you hear is drilling. Drill, baby, drill. And that noise alone is a little bit mentally disgruntling. But besides that, it was all fine and dandy. It was all fine and dandy. They gave me some pain medication and sent me on my way. I didn't really need it yesterday because I was numb, totally numb, comfortably numb. Today, however, I woke up and I was like, I think I'm going to take you up on that. So that is where my mind is currently. So if I happen to slur my words or I'm not speaking coherently, now you know why. With that being said, the show must go on. So I saved this, I guess, this talk for today, and it couldn't be more perfect with me having with me being drugged up, basically, and that is the Bob Lazar talk. So I wanted to talk to you guys about Bob Lazar. So if you don't know who Bob Lazar is, which you should, but if you don't, then strap in, ladies and gentlemen, because I am going to briefly talk about Bob Lazar as well as give a little bit of personal insight as to exactly what I think is going on concerning UFOs and extraterrestrial vehicles, UAPs, etc. So Bob Lazar was basically a physicist at Los Alamos Labs that got called in to work at S4 in Area 51. Now, if you don't know his story, I highly recommend you go back. He has had the same exact story for, 30 years now? And I honestly don't think that he's lying. But that just leads to a bigger question. What exactly are these UAPs and UFOs that are flying around? Now, I'd love to be conspiratorial and say that they are extraterrestrial beings from another planet, but I so happen to work in the aerospace industry. And I told you it's the drugs. I work in the aerospace industry, and believe it or not, although I sound completely nuts right now due to being on medication, I work in conjunction with the DoD, and we work on highly classified things that no one knows about, or at least a very select few people know about. And I'm talking about Grumman, Lockheed, all of these companies, SpaceX. We do everything for them. It's not because they can't do it themselves, but we work in conjunction with them primarily because we can manufacture parts that they simply cannot. The tolerances are too high, they're too complex. They send them off. But you still have to go through extensive background checks, etc., to make sure that you're not a risk of leaking whatever it is, the information, or you're not going to give away or sell the information to a foreign government. It's kind of crazy. So giving that a little wee bit of background about my history in the aerospace industry, I have a very unique perspective about what has happened with Bob Lazar. Now, going back to what, the 80s, when he first initially said this, he was talking about a propulsion system that simply didn't exist. In fact, he was talking about sort of like an anti-gravity system that is just completely bonkers if you think about it, because we cannot create our own gravity. Gravity simply works off mass. And so something that is able to create its own gravity is just science fiction, right? Complete science fiction. And like I said, I totally believe Bob Lazar. It's not that I don't believe him. I believe that he saw what he said he saw, and he is not fabricating the story whatsoever. But you have to think about how compartmentalized our US government is, especially when we're talking about above top secret projects that are going on at places like, I don't know, Wright-Patterson, or even going even crazier to S4, site number 4, inside the complex that we know as Area 51. They are extremely good. You think that people would be able to talk and that word would get out, but they make it so that way, even if you know everything there is to know about your specific domain, you don't have the entire puzzle in order to put what exactly they're doing together. It's compartmentalized in such a way that everyone has very unique pieces, and you may know your piece exceptionally well, but you're not able to piece together exactly what they're doing. Bob Lazar also talked about time dilation and manipulating time, not like a time machine from Back to the Future per se, but more so just manipulating time on a very small scale. I'm trying to dumb this down a little bit just so it makes sense to the masses, but he was talking about very small, on an atomic level, basically. He was talking about time dilation or manipulation on a very small scale. Is that possible? Yeah, we've proven that. And funny enough, exactly what he said they looked like, we're just now seeing. We began seeing it really in 2014, or at least it was exposed to us, or not to even to us, but just to the people that witnessed it in 2014 with the Nimitz case and was it Captain Fravor, Dave Fravor, off the coast of California. And that is exactly what Bob Lazar had said he saw, or even helped attempt to reverse engineer in the 1980s. Now, there's a couple different things we could talk about, going to what type of technology we have nowadays. And like I said, I am not some top secret agent. I am not at the top of this Illuminati pyramid by any means, but you have to think about how exactly these things would be manufactured. Because if you're going to manufacture them at scale, and at scale means making 6, like we can't even, it comes down to, it has to be so secretive, because if you have one company in particular, even making a very small part, a very insignificant part on an airplane, if we know how many parts it takes in order to complete that airplane, even on this little insignificant part, then we can extrapolate that out and know how many total planes, bombers, etc., that a country, being the United States, is making per year. And that's extremely classified information to foreign intelligence, because if they know that, then they can plan for that. They can figure out a way around that. We want to keep people in the dark at all times. And so going back to what my knowledge is, I can speak quite abundantly about a lot of things, but I have not seen anything that even remotely resembles a UFO. Now, there are things that are exceptionally technologically superior in ways that the media and the general public don't even understand. We're talking about G-forces, we're talking about maneuverability, we're talking about weapons, but there is nothing that can manipulate time that I've seen. I'm not saying it exists, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I haven't seen it. And like I said, I'm not a five-star general or whatever it may be. I'm just someone that works in the aerospace industry. And I'd like to think I'm relatively intelligent. I mean, before that, I was studying to become a doctor. That's a whole nother story. But I'm not a blatant idiot. And so when I see something, at least from a scientific perspective, I can kind of break it down and analyze it in a way that will give me better clarity as to what it is. You know, like I know physics, like I'm not an idiot. So I have seen nothing like that. However, it does not mean that nothing like that seems to exist, and it comes down to our black budget. So the United States has a dark budget or a black budget of an unprecedented amount of money. No one even knows. Billions of dollars, maybe even reaching $1 trillion. We simply do not know, and it's completely classified. We'll never vote on it. Congress will never know about it. Even the president is left completely blind, and he's left blind intentionally. And I've heard this from people that know people like Marco Rubio, even people that from a friend of a friend know POTUS now, being the president of the United States, Donald Trump, and they are left completely blinded by this technology. They're left in the dark. They have no idea it exists because they don't have to know. They're disposable. Every 4 years, 4 to 8 years, they're out, another person is in. And like I'd mentioned previously on the last podcast, it's impossible to compete with other foreign nations if they're playing chess and we're playing 2 to 4 to 8 year checkers. Like, so we do need something in the background that is continuing the progression of our military industrial complex, if you will, unannounced to whatever political fill-in comes to power within the United States. Otherwise, we'd be totally left behind. It would be so chaotic that the gears simply wouldn't move, and then we'd be fucked. By the way, that is my French Bulldog Tesla in the background. So if you hear any noise, any little skedaddles, that is what he's doing. He's currently playing. So that's what that noise is. But speaking of Bob Lazar, so he said that it absolutely wasn't from this world. And I just disagree. I mean, there's two different explanations here. Either we have it and they lied to him, so that way when he inevitably told people he sounded like a kook, or we we have made contact with extraterrestrial beings. And for the record, he didn't necessarily say that we made contact with them. He said that he thought it might be an archaeological dig, which is even more exciting or interesting or fascinating. But just because you find something from a long time ago and dig it up, let's say that actually happened, that doesn't necessarily mean that it came from an extraterrestrial civilization. That could simply mean that we were more intelligent then in certain aspects than we are now. If you think about it, if the world completely went dark tomorrow, there would only be a few, two in fact, one being Mount Rushmore, just things of such a stature that can hold out through the different weather and the different variables that would break things down over time to where people of the future, if our civilization currently went dark, they would think we are complete idiots. They'd think we're cavemen because all of our advancements in technology, medicine, it would all be lost. They would have no idea that it had ever existed in our time, and everything would just be lost. And so we can't look back at another civilization and be like, oh, they must have been cave people that wrote on ancient stone tablets with prehistoric tools. That's simply not the way it works. I think that we used to be very, very intelligent back in the day, and we've simply lost all of our knowledge over time. If you think about it, and now I'm getting out of my domain here because I am not a geneticist, but genetic variability is what has the capability in order to create different types of anomalies that can work as intelligence within our society, right? So the more we mate, the more genetically similar we are, hypothetically, meaning that that could be one reason in particular why our IQ currently is dropping. And I know that if you read your books, because like I said, I went to school for quite a while, and not necessarily for this in particular, but if you read the books, it's like, okay, well, the standard IQ goes up, or sorry, the IQ of a civilization or of a nation or whatever goes up one standard deviation every so often, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that makes sense. Due to just having the ability to live longer and with medicine and with treating illnesses and with education, sure. But fluid and crystallized IQ are two different things, A. And furthermore, we're talking about going from a time when people, like in our time that we know of, written history of when people were living in caves to when people had modern technology and medicine and resources and food abundance, etc. That's totally different than the people before written history that could have very well existed, that were way superior than us. So people back then might have been extremely, extremely capable. For all we know, it may not have been the first time that something like nuclear weaponry was created. And like our time of creating nuclear weapons, it may have existed in a kind of a loop for millions and millions and millions of years. I mean, hundreds of millions of years. The Earth is very, very, very old, and the universe is even older. And just like Fermi's paradox states, where are they? Where are they? Well, there's two reasons. I mean, one could be that they're just really far away. Two could be that we're on such a short time span that it happens over and over again, but just not on a time span or a time frame that we're able to make sense of in our minds. That's a very good possibility. I just simply don't think that another species would travel here and drop something off. And if they made it here, if they were able to travel here, they damn sure wouldn't bust down on the side of the galaxy, so to speak, and leave their craft. You're telling me that you made it here, and then the second you make it to Earth, you automatically just crash? Are you kidding me? Do you know how treacherous it is to get through even just our petty little solar system? And let alone galaxy, you're telling me that you just crashed? That makes absolutely no sense. So it's very likely one of these companies, like Lockheed, they have this technology. Or more so, the United States government, like I'd mentioned previously, is much, much more, they're much more clever than what we give them credit for. We like to think of them as idiots, right? Oh, they can't keep a secret because my aunt can't keep a secret, and my cousin's sister can't keep a secret, and I can't keep a secret. Well, yeah, that makes sense. But if you're talking about working together in a very fashioned way, then it is possible to keep secrets. It's possible to keep secrets if almost no one knows everything. If they compartmentalized it, like I had spoken about earlier, then it's very, very possible for them to keep secrets. And so do they have something? Potentially. Or more so, they might just want you to think that they have something that they don't actually have. Let me explain. Is it possible to manipulate? Yeah, they saw them with the human eye, but the human eye is very fallible. I wouldn't trust the human eye at all. So yeah, you saw something with the human eye. That doesn't mean a damn thing to me. What matters to me is what was seen on radar, and radar can be manipulated. It may have been manipulated by our own government because they knew that they could pull that footage out and show the world, and that would mainstream a larger military budget. If we think that there's things here, or if we think that even it's China or Russia, etc., North Korea, then our military budget would increase. It would totally increase. And for the record, why are things that happened a long time ago just now coming to the limelight? They've sat on this story forever. So why just now do we have to go into that UFO box and it be flooding the media? It's very, very convenient. And things come out and they leak when the government wants them to come out and be leaked. That's simply what it comes down to. I don't think that it was unintentional. I don't think so whatsoever. I think that it's either covering something else up, or it's attempting to scare us, or maybe even attempting to see how we would handle such a situation. For instance, I don't know if you guys remember, but a while back in New Jersey, there were drone sightings, very, very large drones. I can very, very, very comfortably say, without saying much, but trust me, wink, wink, those are ours. Very, very comfortably say those are ours, if you get what I'm saying. So I will tell you what I do know. I won't tell you something that I don't know. We can postulate on what something may or may not be, but those were definitely ours. 100% we have drones like that, because those are ours. So we can knock that right off. But people reported seeing something that they don't know. If you don't know what something is, then don't say, I don't know, and then continue on trying to describe something that you have no idea about. Like, that makes no sense. That's like saying, honey, I heard a strange noise in the closet. I don't know what it was, but I think that it was a gremlin. I think it was the boogeyman. I think it was Santa that got a calendar mixed up and thought that it was December when actually it's not December for 2 months. And maybe he had the map upside down, and I'm not sure why he came down the chimney, but instead he landed up in the closet. I have no idea. That's just nonsense talk to me. You have to speak with some type of humility when you're talking about something you don't know. Now, I will say that weird things happen, and it's very, very possible that something had to come here. But if they are coming here, and we take everything into consideration, being what they look like, how they're anthropomorphical, they have, bilateral symmetry. If what we're saying, the stereotypical alien species, the little grays, they're just like humans. They're just like humans. Look at the genetic diversity of different animals or different life forms just on Earth. We have squids, we have birds, we have centipedes, we have all types of different looking creatures, and that's just on Earth. Those things are all connected. So if we take what was said with the little gray aliens, they have to be split from us. They just have to be. How improbable it would be for two things that evolved on total different sides of, I guess, maybe the universe, but I would like to think the solar system, because I don't think they could travel that far. If they can, then they are way ahead of us. So let's say that solar system, right? Maybe it's just a civilization that broke away from Earth a long time ago. Maybe they were forced to leave. Maybe something occurred here that forced them to become nomads in a way, and now they're just coming back. Maybe they're time travelers. Maybe they're us from the future. Who knows? I don't like to postulate like that because we just simply don't know. They could very well be us from the future. They look just like us. They look just like us. I mean, they have 2 ears, 2 eyes, a mouth, a nose, 2 legs. I don't know about the genitalia aspect. You'll have to ask an expert on that, whoever that may be, an alien expert. They have hands, arms. That's absurd to me. Totally absurd. And so when it comes to the UFOs and aliens, I am skeptical, yeah, but I'm also open-minded. Just not so open that my brain falls out and spills all over the floor. I'm open-minded, but I want evidence. And what kind of evidence? I don't know. But when I do know, I'll make sure to let you know. So it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy what has been happening. And just because we are left awestruck by something doesn't necessarily mean that we can just automatically come in and be like, hey guys, I think it's this. I think it's the craziest, most preposterous thing that we could ever think of within our tiny little human monkey minds. And then we tell the world about it. That makes no sense to me. Why don't we just think more rationally, slow down a little bit, and take it one step at a time? Who would want to manipulate us? Well, maybe our government. Why would they want to do that? Maybe for money. Maybe we want to increase a certain program. Like, for instance, when we were going to the moon, supposedly, when we were racing against the Soviets in order to claim national superiority in the Cold War, we didn't, there was a sense of nationalism that made everyone do their job in accordance to winning the war. That war is still going on today. Cold War never stopped. But if you look at the way that factories just automatically came together as a unit and worked towards a common goal of producing weapons and all types of things that would help the United States as a whole, everyone stopped in their tracks and worked in accordance with one another. And that sort of mentality, not only that, but it was not only just the productivity aspect, but they could also say, we're going to take out this money and use it because our very way of life is at stake. Now, was it? Potentially so. But it gave them a very good excuse to rob the American taxpayers of even more money. Even more money. And not only the American taxpayers currently, but they robbed future Americans of their future prosperity. You robbed Peter to pay Paul. And so I think that that is exactly what is probably going on now. It's exactly the same thing as it's always been. Scare tactics and propaganda in order to, and it could be multifactorial why they're doing this. It could be that they are at the same time distracting you from something, stealing from you, confusing you, testing something on you. Who knows what they're doing? And when I say what they are doing, I mean the United States government. That's what I mean. The word they is like a place filler. I hate that. Just say exactly who it is. The problem is that we don't necessarily know who exactly it is because they're left behind the curtain, if you will. And so the second we find out who those people are, then that will make a light of exactly what's happening here. But as far as UFOs go, just slow your roll a little bit and sit and wait, because I don't think that we are currently under surveillance by anything except for ourselves. That's the sad truth. Everyone likes to think that there is a daddy out there that's more intelligent than us that will come save us from our ways. But the truth of the matter is that it's just us. It's probably always going to be just us, and it has forever been just us. And so we have to live with that, and we have to be responsible for our actions because they have consequences. No one except for us is going to save us. And so with that being said, that was my little tangent for the day. Excuse my slurs and non-coherence. Like I said, I had this tooth situation happen, but all in all, thank you very much, and stay tuned because here soon we're going to be dropping episode number 7. Make sure you like and subscribe to this, please. It means a lot to me. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe. Thank you very much. Have a nice day and a nice night.